Hello, BookTube. It was fairly temperate first thing this morning. Still low humidity and low temperatures, and not at all the blast furnace heat that is going to be coming to Boston on and off for the next 10 days. So I went out. I went out and ran some errands. And of course, when I ran out and ran errands, I ran to the Brattle Book Shop in Boston, in downtown Boston. Those of you who are new to the channel might not have heard me talk endlessly about it. It's a used bookstore in downtown Boston that is incredible. Huge amounts of turnover. Stock going in and going out all the time. All the time. Brattle van is out buying every day. And also a gigantic sale lot next to the store itself that is thousands more books for $1, $3, or $5. I spend more time in the sale lot than I do in the shop. I absolutely love, quite apart from the gems that I find, I love the experience of just slowly, peacefully wandering the carts. There is no greater torture in the world than trying to deal with the Brattle bargain carts, the sale lot outside, when you're pressed for time. That's just horrible torture. But if you're not, you've got a beautiful, temperate, blue-skied morning, and you've got nowhere special to be for a little bit of time, I love the experience of just slowly running my eyes over all the books. They change all the time. And also there are so many of them that even if they didn't change all the time, day to day you would still notice different things. And I have a long, long history with many, many of these books. So it was a joy. It always is a joy to do that. But I also fill an arm with books while I'm doing that. I fill an arm with books. I was completely outdone this morning by a young woman who was there with her mother. And I think from their accents, they probably were not from America. And she had me and everybody else beat in terms of how many books she was buying. Just mountainous armloads so that she was tucking them under her chin like that. I couldn't help but cheer her on. But I got a stack of books. And I want, again, to defend myself, which the main defense that I have is that I'm not planning on keeping all of these. Everything in the sale lot is so cheap that it's kind of a fast motion library. It's not a huge investment where it's going to be sitting on the shelf staring at me, trying to induce guilt. Instead, I can first of all, you can take a gamble on things out in the sale lot. You can pick something up and think, I've never heard of this before, and give it a try for $1. What harm is there in that? And also, the things that I don't keep will go out of my collection, either back to the Brattle or to all of you. So, or to donations. I have a friend who has an ongoing donation center for things like books. So the idea is an ongoing wave that washes in and then washes out, but it leaves a little behind. And maybe some of the things I find will become new favorites and stick around forever. So I want to show you the books that I got. We'll start with the mass market paperbacks. And the very first paperback that we'll start with is for a long-heralded BookTube event that starts today, and that is Garb August. That is trash. We're reading trash in August. I have a whole bunch more to say about Garb August and a whole bunch more to say about trash just in general, but I took a flyer that one of these books is probably trash. This is by the great Gardner Fox, who wrote nobody knows how many science fiction short stories and novels. No one knows how many comic books he wrote. Thousands and thousands and thousands of comic books. Just liberally creating things left, right, and center, including a whole bunch of characters and concepts that are getting, some of them, a half dozen of them, are getting a beautiful big screen treatment in the movie Black Adam, starring The Rock, but also starring a whole bunch of other characters as Hawkman and Dr. Fate and who knows who else. Gardner Fox wrote a lot. He wrote, and he wasn't particularly picky about what he wrote. It's possible. I know that he has more friends than enemies out there in the reading world. It's possible, just faintly possible, that he wrote garbage. It's just possible. I know that the longtime comic book fans are howling right now, but it's just possible that he's a garbage author. But I found a book of his that I had to get. This is called Kirik Fights the Demon World. Look at that cover. You've got a lizard. Who is this? Does it say on there? Ken Barr. That seems like a pen name to me. You've got a lizard there. You've got, I don't know which of these is the hero. I have no idea. I'm assuming it's this guy because this guy's fat. And usually the visual iconography is that your hero can't be fat. But it's also got a castle with a skull on it and a dragon flying away with a helpless maiden who has no clothes on. So this cover's got it all. This is actually, it says in the tradition of Conan. I think we all know what that means. This is just straight up ripped off from Conan. Although I gather the back of the book says that Kirik is a warlock warrior. And that is certainly not in the tradition of Conan. That's much more in the tradition of Karl Edward Wagner, of Cain, where the sword and sorcery is embodied in one character. But I've never read a Kirik book before, except in the sense that I'm sure I have read many, many Kirik books before, just not called that. I don't think I've ever read this, but it jumped out at me. Wouldn't that cover jump out at you? So I grabbed it. And I will give Kirik and his fantasy world a try for Garb August. And then this next one is an old Ace paperback, 35 cents when that was real money, and almost certainly it's an anthology of short stories, of science fiction short stories. Almost certainly it includes something or other that's garbage. It's edited by Don Walheim, and it's called The Hidden Planet, Science Fiction Adventures on Venus. And there you have tentacled creatures with growth coming out of their body. You have a tall razor-topped mountain. You have these things slithering in the water. And this, as you can see on the cover there, you have Lester Del Rey, you have Lee Brackett. Those are the two names that I really know. Stanley Weinbaum, I think I know. I think I read a volume of his called The Best of Stanley Weinbaum. Was there one of those? You old science fiction aficionados out there. Remember that series from Del Rey, The Best of So-and-so, Best of Philip K. Dick, Best of Cordwainer Smith? Didn't they do one for Stanley Weinbaum? I could swear that I read my way through that one hot summer. But this book came out in 1959. And the stories range from 1935 to the 1940s, and then the latest is 1954. And Don Walheim's introduction, he wrote a quick introduction here that I want to read you. Everyone is familiar with the evening star, whose brilliant, steady rays dominate for an hour or two the evening sky just after sunset. Those who rise at dawn will also know the morning star, which at other times of the year heralds the rising of the sun. Modern men know that these are one and the same vision, the planet Venus, most beautiful and brilliant of celestial objects, by virtue of being the closest planetary neighbor to our own Earth. For thousands of years, men have marveled at its glow and wondered at its mystery. Yet it is to be given to us, to those fortunate to be alive in 1959 and the next decade, to learn some of the answers. For it has already been announced as government policy that rocket probes will begin their effort to cross the 30 million miles of space that separate the two worlds at their nearest approach, and inform their human senders of what may lie beneath the veil of the hidden planet. What we know of Venus is little yet tantalizing. We know it to be, by weight and size, a near twin of Earth, 7,700 miles in diameter to our 7,900. We know that on Venus a person who weighs 100 pounds would weigh 85. We know that it has an atmosphere, and a thick one. Closer to the sun than Earth, still its temperatures on some parts of its surface should not be prohibitive to life. And yet, no one can say what that surface is like, for Venus is covered eternally by a thick blanket of unyielding clouds. The very length of the day is unknown. Opinions of astronomers vary from an estimate of 22 hours to one of 46 days. The nature of its surface, whether desert, ocean, or morass, is totally unknown. Even the constituents of its atmosphere are still subject to debate. These are some of the things that only a probe or rocket can answer. That and the question of whether there is oxygen in its air and water on its surface, without which life on Venus would be highly unlikely. But in the meantime, while we are waiting for the probes to begin their hazardous flame-driven journeys, we can project some of the possible secrets of the hidden planet against the screen of the imagination. In the 5 adventures on Venus included in this book, there are certain to be some points that will prove accurately prophetic. So read The Hidden Planet not only for the thrill of good science fiction, but also for a sneak preview of things to come. Now, I would like very much to say that the decade that followed, that Don Walheim is talking about in this book, was an American triumph. I would like very much to list here a long list of successful NASA missions to Venus. But the plain and simple truth is that the next decade and a half after this book was the last book that could be written about the high adventure of the mystery world of Venus. These were the last ones. These were the last stories. This was one of the last anthologies that could happen. You can draw a clear dividing line in the science fiction about Venus between when we didn't know about the planet and when we did. You can do the same thing with Mars a little earlier. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, so one way or another, it's a great story, and I wish I could read that story. That next decade and a half belonged to the Russians, to the Soviet Space Agency, which only a few years after this book came out managed to launch probes, the Venera probes, to the whole series of them, from 1 all the way to, I don't even remember when they stopped, 20 or 30, 20 or 21, something like that. And the Venera probes are what gave us our first glimpses. NASA did get off the Mariner probe. They got close enough to Venus's atmosphere to let us know quite a bit about it. But it's a Russian success story. It's a Soviet success story. And I have heard rumors for decades that there is a long and very annotated and very good personality-driven Russian history of, I want to say that someone once told me years ago that's called Russia and Venus. But it's all about the obsession with the Russian Space Agency of understanding Venus, of getting there and probing it and getting back information and whatnot. If that book exists, I have certainly never read it. I don't think it's ever been translated into English that I know of. And through those successes, NASA had far fewer successes with probing Venus than the Soviets did, but the Soviets were trying a lot harder. They put up Venera missions all the time. NASA had far fewer missions and far less success, but NASA space equipment was better made than Soviet space equipment, which always malfunctioned. Sometimes at the most heartbreaking moments before it was supposed to do its job. Between those missions, very soon after this book came out, we learned that last claim that Don Walheim made is completely wrong. It's 900 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface of Venus. There's virtually no magnetic field to protect anything on that surface from radiation. The cloud cover and the wind cover will do a lot, but it is hot enough to melt metal. It is totally inhospitable to life, totally. To any life as we know it. Life as we know it needs water. And that is totally impossible on the surface of Venus or in the clouds of Venus. We actually managed to get, briefly, some pictures from landers on the surface of Venus before their key components simply fused and melted. We know for sure now that nothing in this book, there are no sneak previews in this book, nothing could happen. Nothing. It's not a question of there being, we don't know whether it's tundra or terrain or morass or swamp or whatever, or that on certain latitudes life must be possible. No, there's no life possible on Venus. And now we know that. And I always find that fascinating. I always kind of want to make a mental game out of charting what the last books were before that terminator of knowledge just sweeps over the landscape. And all of a sudden, you can't write a story like that anymore. All of a sudden, you can't write a story about Barsoom. Unless it's a fantasy story. You can't do it. Or Carson of Venus. You can't do it. Once knowledge takes its place, suddenly all the stories like these are shunted into a what-if, an alternate reality in which Venus is habitable. I always find that utterly fascinating. That doesn't happen most anywhere else. It happens in science fiction that the growth of our knowledge changes the fiction, which I just think is fascinating. I'm sure that I have not read. I might have read the Lester Del Rey story. I went through a period where I read everything by Lester Del Rey. I don't think I've read anything else in here. So we'll see if this ace paperback can hold up. And we'll see also if any of it constitutes garbage. I don't really know. Then I just went to the Brattle the other day, so some of you will remember that. I found a P.G. Wodehouse volume with an Iconicus cover, and I found another one. today. This is Summer Lightning. There's the Empress of Blandings, and this is a Blandings Castle novel. This is not a Jeeves and Wooster novel, but I don't care. I don't care at all. I love these covers. Once upon a time, I had them all in mass market paperbacks, and I have them all in ebook. But I'm in addition to wanting to read, you want a paperback to stuff in a bag or have right next to a chair when your electronics are charging or whatever. But in addition to that, now I'm wondering, did maybe someone have all of these? And I saw one, and now I've seen another. This was not there when I found the first one, which was Mulliner Nights. That was a Mulliner novel. This is a Blandings novel. Am I going to see a trickle of these with every Brattle trip, or maybe a gigantic block of them that's just about ready to come up from the basement and be priced? I had to grab it anyway. I'm not looking to build a collection anymore. I had that whole collection, brand new, mint condition Penguins with these covers that I knew I liked. I used to go to the bookstore and get 2 or 1, depending on how much spending money I had in my pocket that day. I would get 2 or 1 until eventually I had them all. Now, you'd think if I went to all that bother, I would have kept them. But they're gone. And I don't think they were destroyed. I think I have a good, accurate memory of which of my books over the years were destroyed by beagles. And I don't think any of those were. But then the next one, also a mass market paperback, but it's not trash. It's not trash. It's a classic. It's John Dryden's Aeneid, which I have. I have the Penguin Classic used to make a trade paperback of Dryden's Aeneid. And I also had a big blockish hardcover. But this is a Mentor? Yes, this old Airmont classics. Okay, but these were Mentor. Airmont and Mentor are the same. This is the paperback that I had forever and ever. Back when the metal spinner rack at a dry goods store or a drugstore or an airport would have everything. Would have a selection of everything where you could get Dryden's Aeneid in a paperback for, what was this? $1.95 in one of those spinner racks right next to P.G. Wodehouse, or even the Hidden Planet. Once upon a time, that was possible. Not anymore. But this is the paperback that I used, and this is in perfect condition. It'll easily take another read, so I grabbed it. And then the last mass market paperback is a double. I knew it was a double. I grabbed it. It was $1, and it's something I just got a few months ago at the Brattle in a hardcover. But I got the paperback anyway. It was $1, and I got that hardcover, but I haven't really hefted it. It's a big book. It's 1,000 pages long. I got An Instance of the Finger Post by Ian Pears in the mass market paperback with the step back full of stupid blurbs. A blurb that's one word is not going to help you at all. But this is a historical novel that's also a murder mystery. Always garnering murder mysteries for March, Mystery Madness. So those were the mass market paperbacks. Everything from Gardner Fox to John Dryden. But then we have some trade paperbacks, including this Penguin Classic History. I've seen this sort of tan and black trade paperback for military history. This is the first one I've seen that I know of that isn't military history. It isn't strictly history either. This is the classic abridgment of the Stones of Venice by John Ruskin. I just couldn't pass this up. I have, I believe, a hardcover of this abridgment. Once upon a time, when I was working in the retail bookstore, a publisher brought out the whole of the Stones of Venice, the multi-volume, unedited thing, with all of the plates. And for some god unknown reason, we were getting them in the store. I would be in receiving when they would open the boxes. The first one that I saw, I thought, what on earth is this? They were, I forget, each individual volume was expensive, and they were useless without the whole. They were numbered. And I knew perfectly well that we had like maybe 3 customers who would even consider buying such a thing. And I knew who they were. I actually had the store assistant manager came up to me and said, "You are the only hope we have of selling this thing. Do you know anybody who's going to buy this?" I said, "I have 3 candidates. I think one of them will," and one of them did. But I can't believe that we were sent them at all. and I mean, I'm a big fan of John Ruskin, so I would gladly have the unabridged, but I would not consult it enough. It would take up way too much space. I would not consult it enough. Whereas this, the 1-volume abridgment, I love almost equally and consulted a lot. And I'm trying to remember all day long. I've been trying to remember what version of this I have. I don't think Penguin ever did a standard black spine classic of the Stones of Venice in this one volume abridgment, and I don't know where else I have it. I know that I have this. I'll have to look around. I'll add this to the collection, which is ever growing now. But I have extra bookcases. I have lots and lots of empty shelf space. So the thing is, I will dip into these books. I will reread chunks of them. I will read chunks of them. That Mystery Planet thing. I will read anything in there that's new to me. See how the paperback holds up. If it's falling apart at the end, I'll throw it away. If it's in good shape, maybe so that it could be read again, then I'll keep it. But the thing is, I will reread, I will sample, I will read for the first time, interspersed with the new books that are my bread and butter, the main things that I read, and then I will put everything on a shelf and just wait. I'm in no hurry. I will just wait. And months down the line, almost a year down the line, when I look at those shelves, will I feel compelled to either rearrange it so that books are in subject matters with other subject matters, history with history, that sort of thing? Or will I look at them and think, none of them are keepers. That they are not the residue left behind by the wave. They might as well go. Time will tell. Then the next trade paperback is not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. This is The Morning After and Long After, which is collections of essays and book reviews by Wilfred Sheed. I had this book forever and ever. This thing is, who did this? A Common Reader edition from Academe Press. I had this once upon a time. This edition came out in 2001 at the bookstore, and I snapped it up. I was overjoyed. I remember I was dancing around with glee in the receiving room, and the receivers were just laughing. Just saying, oh, it's another Steve book. No one's ever going to hear about this. You're going to show it to me, but I'm not going to have any idea what it is. And I did, and nobody knew what it was. But Wilfred Sheed he's, I believe, a far more talented novelist than he is given credit. None of his novels are remembered anymore. Not Max Jameson, and people will always be kind. They're not remembered, and they should be. But his criticism, his nonfiction, oh my, it's just a song, just joyful. This is one of the few books I got today that I absolutely for sure know I will hold on to. I will clean it up. It's got a little schmutz on it, and I will probably reread quite a bit of this. And then it's got a home. I've got a floor-to-ceiling bookcase that's all about reviews, bookish essays, bookish thoughts, bookish columns, that sort of thing. This will go on there, a long-awaited addition to that collection. Very happy to find it. And then this next one, I read when it came out. I loved it when it came out. I got rid of it. I don't think I ever even had a copy. I think I got it from my library at the time. But I want to read it again. Absolutely. This is by Stephen Kinzer, and this is All the Shah's Men, about the CIA-backed American coup that toppled a democratically elected leader and put in a leader that America could do business with, the Shah. And the instability that led from there. I remember this being just electrically good reading. And now I found a paperback for $1, so I will reread a chunk of this, maybe all of it. You never know. I do a steady amount of rereading. There's quite a bit here that tempts me. But All the Shah's Men is one of the great books to come out of that whole period, and it is the great book on that particular coup. Then this is an Oxford University Press trade paperback that I have never seen, and it is a perfect example of one of the joys of the Brattle, which is that things are so cheap you can take a flyer, just a wild guess on something. This is by Philip Davis, and it is a biography of the author Bernard Malamud, A Writer's Life, echoing this. Shirley Hazard, A Writer's Life, a writing life that's coming out later this year that I got just yesterday. I just took a flyer on this. I read I think it was Joyce Carol Oates? Yes, Joyce Carol Oates, writing for the Times Literary Supplement, wrote, "Most biographies trudge along the surface of a life, amassing and presenting facts like rubble on a shovel." It's very good. In which very few precious gems might be visible. This pioneering biography of Malamud presents gem-like aphorisms and insights and observations on the biographers on virtually every page. the reason why this is a gamble, you might think, why is this a flyer? You've already made it clear over the years that you love biography of all things. And it's true. It's my favorite kind of book. But I don't like Bernard Malamud at all. I've tried his novels many times. Over and over again I have tried. Not just The Natural, but lots of them. And they don't do anything for me at all. I don't think they're any good. And so I told myself two things when I grabbed this. I thought, one, maybe they are good, and you just had, a wild bug up your butt, and that a new look at the author will open up the fields of the author's work, and that would be wonderful. That would be absolutely wonderful. I keep waiting for that to happen with the novels of Iris Murdoch. But Bernard Malamud's a perfect other example of a 20th century author who's well-known, famous, that does nothing for me at all. So that was one thing. And the other thing that I thought was, well, you don't have to like the author's work to like a biography of the author, right? I read and loved, mostly loved, Zachary Leader's 2-volume biography of Saul Bellow. I don't particularly like Saul Bellow's work, so that plus the fact that it was no overhead, there was no risk. If this had been $35, I wouldn't have done it, but it was cheap, so I grabbed it, and we will see. It goes high on the list. Then this next one I have had a few times, and I really like it. I keep getting rid of it. I think I had a trade paperback of it the last time I had it, and I think I sent it to one of you. So this is probably not the first time this has been hauled on this channel. This is by S.J. Paris, and it's a historical novel called Heresy. Beautiful cover there. And this is set in the reign of Queen Elizabeth I and stars Giordano Bruno. Not the only series of historical novels that star Bruno. He's an interesting, magnetic character. People are drawn to him, whether they want to read about him, just literally, biographies and histories, or whether they want him to star in some novel of theirs. He has that element about him, like Christopher Marlowe. Like Christopher Marlowe, in that when you're reading an adventure and this is an adventure novel with Bruno at the center of it, you can't help but think about the end of their life. I mean, Marlowe has a horrific end to his life. He is, if you read Charles Nichols' book, The Reckoning, you feel 100% certain that he was lured to his death and realized that at the last minute after a whole day with his killers and tried to fight them off and died. As a result, Bruno's end is much, much worse, being burned alive. And you know that. It sort of hangs over the whole book. But I remember loving this, just loving this as a novel. I found this, beautiful, like new hardcover. So I wasn't going to pass that up for $1. Then this next thing, I have never read. I've heard about it. It's a big, ornate companion volume to, I believe, an art exhibit. Does it say? Yes, the Natural Portrait Gallery in London had a huge exhibit, and this was the companion volume. But a big, hefty thing on its own. This is The Face of Britain, A Nation Through Its Portraits by Simon Schama. With this great cover design. It's just there are all the portraits. Look at all of those portraits. And the cover just goes over that, but allows some of them to peek through. So no matter where you put the ribbon of the cover, you'll have some portraits peeking through. I like that a lot. And I also really, really love portraits. I really do. I know that's dorky and very old-fashioned, but I love portraits. I mean, as a form of art, as a school or an exercise in art, I absolutely love them. I think I know where that love comes from. I'm pretty sure that I do. And I'm pretty sure it won't come as any surprise to longtime viewers of this channel that it comes from John Singer Sargent, one of the greatest portrait artists of all time. But it grew out from there. I am fascinated by the history behind famous portraits and non-famous portraits. I'm fascinated by the politics involved, the psychology involved. This book might be great. Simon Schama can be great. He has a rather disturbing tendency to cough prose onto the page, to phone things in. I'm hoping they didn't do it for this. You never know. I mean, if it's a companion volume to a long-planned gallery exhibit, then he might have got a check just for showing up. That does happen. We'll see. It's going to be fascinating. It and the Malamud book are one of the only things here that I haven't already read, so it'll naturally go high on the list. And then this next one, when did this come out? This is our last one. This came out in 2015. I got the advance copy from the publisher. That would have been right before we started talking to each other. I got the advance copy from the publisher. I got the finished copy from the publisher. I reviewed it, I believe. I'm not sure I remember who I reviewed it for, and that usually means I did it for Open Letters. And got rid of it. I got rid of the advance copy. I got rid of the hardcover, and largely got rid of it from my mind until I saw it again at the Brattle, and then I thought, it is time that you revisit that. And this is another Fox, but it's not Gardner Fox. This is Robin Lane Fox. This is his big biography of St. Augustine. The saint, the designation of saint is somehow missing from the title of the book. They don't hand them out like party favors. If you've got one, you include it on the title of the book. But this is a big thing from Basic Books that came out in 2015. I remember I used to have editors and writers over here every Friday back then, the pre-pandemic days. And one of them commented, that if I went into a bookstore, that would be $35. You get these things in the mail. You get a whole stack of them in the mail every day. It was a healthier days for book mail than they are today, but it wasn't like I wasn't grateful. And it wasn't like I didn't sing for my supper. I think I wrote a review of this. If I can find it, I will leave a link to it down below. And it's not, I think there are two big biographies of Augustine that really command attention, one by Farrell and one by Peter Brown. Peter Brown's is largely unassailable as far as the standard work on this person. But Robin Lane Fox is an author that I just love. I absolutely love. And I didn't love this book as much as him writing 800 pages? 600 pages. Him writing 600 pages on St. Augustine, one of the most fascinating figures in human history. The upshot of my opinion when I finish this is that it should have been better. But I don't know. Again, we could be talking about a wild bug up my butt. So I'm not 100% sure of that. When I saw it on the Brattle sale cards, my first reaction was not, nope, I know that book. I saw thousands of books like that today. Not to be closed-minded, not to be reactionary, where I said, hope springs eternal, but I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. I gave that book a completely open-minded examination. I paid attention, and it just wasn't good. I saw hundreds of books like that today, and also hundreds of books where I was good, but not good enough to try again, not good enough to keep. And this didn't provoke that reaction, so I will go at this again and give it another try. In these doldrums where great big and great biographies are fewer than I would like. So there we go. I don't want to block the beam. We have Robin Lane Fox's big biography of St. Augustine. Or just, Bob Augustine to you. Then The Face of Britain. Simon Schama examining portraits for all they're worth. Then Heresy, a historical murder mystery about... You still want to see her, don't you? All right, well, we'll do it this way. Her historical murder mystery in which the sleuth is Giordano Bruno. We have Bernard Malamud, A Writer's Life. Happy to give it a try. I couldn't tell you two things about Malamud's life. Then All the Shah's Men by a great foreign correspondent. We have The Morning After and Long After. Those are two different works by the great Wilfred Sheed. We have The Stones of Venice in an abridged, beautiful Penguin edition by John Ruskin. We have An Instance of the Finger Post, not the first time I have got this recently on this channel. John Dryden's translation of Virgil's Aeneid, which is all in rhyming couplets and is sublime beyond human expression. Summer Lightning by P.G. Wodehouse with an Iconicus cover. The Hidden Planet, edited by Donald Walheim, about a planet that isn't hidden anymore. We know a lot about Venus now. We know that life is not possible there. And Kirik Fights the Demon World by Gardner Fox. A pure Garb August cover that I could not pass up. Absolutely could not pass it up. So that was my trip to the Brattle today, where there was no prohibitive heat, no prohibitive humidity. It's weird. Looking at the forecast for the next 7 days, looking at the the radar and the charts and whatnot, I honestly don't know what to predict. It looks like the temperature is going to be going up into the 90s, then down into the low 80s, then up into the 90s again, then down into the low 80s again. One day that is coming up, I think, at the end of the week, we probably hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit in Boston. I am thinking, my guess now is that this wild instability is going to lead to a few stretches of heat, and then around the middle of the month, that's when I think the month will calm down, drop off a cliff, and become normal, where the daytime high temperatures will be in the low 80s for the rest of August as the planetary tilt of the Earth starts to decrease the daytime temperature in New England. That's big scale. But I don't think I'll be going back to the Brattle this week. I don't think I will. I have errands that I couldn't do today that need to be done this week. So I have to leave the Bean again someday this week. If tomorrow is going to be 95 degrees Fahrenheit, it won't be tomorrow. So maybe Wednesday. We shall see. But I consider this a pretty good Brattle run. My last 10 Brattle runs have been just wonderful. Where there are a lot of these things that I may keep. There's enough percentage of them that I have not read. There are things I'm eager to reread. The Robin Lane Fox biography of St. Augustine, I'm eager to reread. And a few others as well. I'm always up to do a little rereading of the Stones of Venice. I know that work a little too well to dig right in. And I think it was just comparatively recently that I read the Bruno mystery. Anyway, that was my Brattle trip for today. It was a ton of fun. And I will wrap this up for now. It's gone on quite long enough, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.